Well, I've just been down here for over an hour running parts through the parts washer and scrubbing them, giving them a pretty good cleaning, and just finishing up now. And I wanted to point out a couple of things I found interesting on this bracket here with the adjustable gears on it. This gear on the outside right here, it's stamped H, looks like 91 H over here, but then right there it's 48, and I think that means that this is a 48 tooth gear. And the reason why that's interesting to me is because when I bought this lathe, on one of the leg assemblies there was a little metal post sticking out, and hanging on that metal post there was a gear that looked about the thickness of this gear, about the same heft as this gear, only I think it was larger. And I think what that was is I think that's a change gear, so that I think you've got the quick change gearbox gives you all of these different settings, and then I think you can change this gear to another gear and get a whole nother slew of settings. I actually haven't cleaned the quick change gearbox case yet, but when I clean that I'll be able to look at the chart real closely, and maybe there's a clue on there that indicates how you go about getting a second range out of changing gears. I'm hoping it's just changing that one gear, because there was only one gear that came with this lathe that wasn't on the lathe already. And the other thing I wanted to point out that I thought was kind of interesting was on this assembly here, it's just one of many examples of why it's a good thing for me to be cleaning all of this gunk off of this thing. And just grab a glove here so I can get a glove on so I can grab this right over here. Basically what we got is right here you can see there's almost like a cup-shaped depression, and there's a hole in it, and then there's a little ridge, almost like a little valley, that runs down here, and then there's another one here, and it runs down here. And it looks to me like what's supposed to happen is, I think, is oil's supposed to drip into that cup. Some of it goes down the hole and lubricates the axle right here that this gear is riding on. And then I think overflow is supposed to run down this little trough and go down into this hole, and on this side into this hole, and lubricate the shaft where the little pinion gear is riding. So that was completely clogged with gunk. These holes were clogged completely, and these little troughs were completely clogged, so obviously it wasn't working the way it should. Really the last thing I can explore this evening, if I want to, is this lever assembly right in here. This we know it just comes out. And we know that the shorter side is on the top. That's the way it came out. So then there's this assembly right here. Now there's two things about this I noticed. The first thing is it just flops like this. The second thing is it's doing this. Now down inside here there's a collar with a set screw, and that collar is responsible for keeping this from moving this way. And I'm thinking over time that collar may have just moved out a little bit. So I think when I put this back together, I'm going to want to put this in so it doesn't do this. But what I'm wondering about is that lever on the side of the apron. That lever on the right hand side of the apron that you're supposed to be able to flip up to go one direction, click it in the middle, and then click it down for the other direction, the middle being neutral. Pretty sure that's how it works. I was reading online, somebody was talking about on the Hendeys that lever should kind of like snap or click into those positions. In other words, it shouldn't just want to just flop down. And I'm wondering what actually controls that, because that shaft and that part that I just took out that engages this, that doesn't have anything to make it click stop in any particular position. And this piece right here apparently also doesn't do that. So the only thing that's left are the actual gears as they slide on the shaft underneath the headstock here. So maybe that's where that happens. I don't know. Alright, so now how is this going to come out? Well, I can see the outside of the end of the shaft comes out right here. And I can see, believe it or not, I can see a collar with a square head bolt on it right on the inside here. The trick is, okay, that whole shaft rotates. So that's how you get the square head bolt. You rotate it so the collar is facing in a way where you can get the nut loose, and then I bet you I could slide that out this way and this whole bracket will come out. So let me go find a small wrench for that. Alright, roll up my sleeves in case I got any contact on the sides here, which are as filthy as a, well, just filthy. Ooh, how fortunate for me that locking nut was so loose. Oh, and the collar is spinning nice and easily. Oh, love it. That should come out very nicely. Let's see. I'm gonna take this punch. That's the deal. Let's see, is it gonna clear that bracket before it runs up against the other collar? Close. Alright, I'm up against the other collar and it's still not clearing, so I've got to loosen the set screw on that other collar, which, unlike the square headed bolt like the other one, it's an Allen wrench. It's an Allen screw this size. Yep. Oh, that one's tighter than the other one. So the one with the Allen screw is the collar that is the one that keeps that thing kind of over where it's supposed to be. In other words, that collar right there has got the square head bolt on it. That's the one that keeps that shaft from being able to be removed, and it stays up against the inside of the bed. That collar right there stays up against the back of this bracket and keeps this bracket from wanting to just wander over this way. Alright, so now with gloves again. Probably thinking, hey, your hands are already dirty. Yeah, but they're only a little dirty. That's a little bit of cleanup. I'm grabbing onto this greasy mess to try and get it out. That's going to be a lot of dirty. Alright. So now, let's finish popping this up. Now this stupid punch. Too short. This one. There we go. Now the bracket just dropped, but it's not falling out on the floor because the punch is holding it. So grab the bracket, take the punch out. Voila. Now, collar number 1. Oops. Collar number 2. By George, other than the pan feet that actually are on the bottom there, and a little bit of hardware here and there which I'm going to leave on, the bed is now stripped of all parts. Well, I cleaned up a little bit there, and I got the headstock on a board across the bottom here so that I don't have to have it hanging or just sitting on the floor the whole time. And cleaned off the bench over there. Plan on probably putting it up there, but I might try cleaning it down here first. Been busy cleaning some parts. The apron came out pretty good, a lot of the internal parts, and I got the quick change gear decent. I'm just going to get the heavy stuff off for now. I'll worry about getting it to the level of being painted. Still see there's a lot of dirt in there, and just wanted to point out over here shows the gear, that 69 tooth gear. That must be that extra gear that was hanging on the lathe when I bought it. And it's interesting because basically they're saying that on the stud you should have a 48 tooth gear, and on the selector, which is another one of the shafts, there should be a 48 tooth gear for all of these threads per inch. So all the way down to 1.5, all the way up to 80 threads per inch. And then turns out you switch this gear from the 48 over to the 69, and you put this in position 2, and it's all for just 11.5 inches, 11.5 threads per inch. So I thought, oh, that's interesting. You know, the only time you ever need that 69 tooth gear is for that one setting of 11.5 threads per inch. And I was thinking to myself, wow, I probably never will need that. Who knows, you know? Maybe I will. But lo and behold, he just bought one of the Hendeys that I had been keeping an eye on down. Had a 6-jaw chuck on it, and it was an 8-speed gear head just like mine, but it was the 14-inch version of it, and I think it might have been even a little longer. It might have even been an 8-footer or a 7-footer or something like that. So I think it's like a 14 by 8. Anyways, he posted on the PM forum that he had just picked up this lathe and was talking about it, and I said, gee, I wonder if that's the one. So I messaged him back, and sure enough, he confirmed that he is indeed the individual who picked up that lathe for their shop. And I gave him some information that I had garnered on it, and it turns out one of the things he's looking for is he's looking for that 69 tooth gear, because he said that they want to cut pipe threads. So apparently 11.5 threads per inch is a pipe threading, more common in pipe threading. So anyways, just thought I'd mention that because it's all spelled out here, and this was all covered under so much grime I couldn't really see it that clearly. Slight change in plans. I decided to move the headstock. Instead of work on cleaning that right now, I decided to move the headstock up onto the table to get it out of the way. I want to get this chip pan flipped over so I can prep the other side of that, prime the bottom of the pan. The reason why I don't want to do the top first, I don't want to prime and paint the top first, because then when I flip it over, invariably the not fully hardened paint is going to be very easily scratched. If I'm going to end up scratching anything, I'd rather scratch the bottom where it's not going to really be seen. I'd take some extra care here and put a couple blocks in the front here, put them in a proximity so that I can lower this down onto the table, but the beveled gears that stick out proud of the bottom of this won't be damaged, because there won't be any weight on them. And then also I was going to just put this one and let it hang out over the table a little bit, but this gear actually, the bottom of this gear actually sticks down quite a bit below that, so that would have put a lot of pressure on this shaft, and I'd run the risk of bending that shaft. You know, my workbench top is actually a door. I bought this workbench as it is, but this was made out of a metal frame, and then this door, because you get here's the, obviously there was a lock set in there. But I'll tell you, I would love to have seen the place that this door came out of, because I don't know why, but they had a pretty tough door. That thing I mean, I know I don't have it in the middle, it's kind of near the end here, but still, I can see zero deflection in that door from that weight of that headstock being on there. Alright, so I just checked this out and I figure I can actually lift this pan and tilt it up onto its side right on this base, the drill press base that I'm using here, except for the fact that I've got it kind of tucked underneath the table there so it was out of the way. So I've got to move that whole base out this way. So the problem is if I try and lift it right now, chip pan's gonna want to fall off of there. So I'm gonna get a sling underneath the chip pan and see if we can't get the chip pan off. Then maybe move the base over it and then put the chip pan back on it.